What's going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George, minus goes, delivering yet again another MMA superstar. This time we have former UFC lightweight and now, of course, working for ESPN and the UFC at the broadcast table. It's the Irish Dragon himself, Paul Felder. What up, Paul? How are you?
I'm great, man. How are you, bro?
Good. It's been a minute since we chatted. I hope you're well. Let's do a quick catch up. Family and you, everybody good through this horrible time we're going through, the pandemic.
Yeah, just like everybody, we all had our struggles with it. And I think we also had some positives come out of it. And I think for me, building stronger relationships with my family and things like that. I bought a house because of it. I was like, I'm sick of renting in these small apartments and when you get quarantined for weeks on end, you realize, man, I got to upgrade the digs. So did all that, but training was tough through it. And I think that was one of the things that really started cementing that I wanted to kind of call it quits with the fighting stuff. But other than that, it was good. I got into a lot of fitness stuff and a lot of endurance. Tried to become a bit of a lighter person year round, as opposed to you guys have seen me on the road, man, when I get up to, close to 200 pounds. But it's been good with me. How about you guys?
Thank you for asking. We, I guess, just like every other family, we had a couple losses, some serious cases that turned out well in the end. But yeah, it was, how I have to go and rewind. But early on, my concern was my parents.
Yes,
this was attacking our seniors.
Yeah,
and then of course from there we found out it could go after anyone. But I appreciate you asking. We're doing well after it's all said and done, and like you, I guess, just adapting. We're no longer at Mandalay Bay full time, and that's why we're kind of doing this connection. We're at home right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people went through that kind of thing where things shifted, right? But you learned how to deal. I mean, we all kind of got thrown under the bus and had to survive a little bit. But yeah, it was the same with me, right? You just worried about my mom, who's in her 60s. That was concerning, but all good. I mean, luckily, thank goodness, nothing happened to anybody really close. But I know a lot of people who have lost people, and it was serious. And I think now that we're sort of coming to it, I won't even say the light at the end of the tunnel, because I don't know if there's ever even going to be one at this point. But I think we forget how crazy it was. That those first 6 months of that was just madness.
Definitely the unknown. I feel like every time I felt like we're coming out of it, we're not. And so I'm just telling myself we're at least in the fourth quarter of whatever ball game, this is, if you want to use this analogy, or maybe it's the fifth round of a title fight. I don't know. But I feel like at least we're kind of at the end, and now we have a defense, some defense.
Yeah.
So
true. And that's where it's like, all right, well, at this point, we've at least got somewhat of a control on things. So, we're back. We got fights. We got crowds.
Yes.
We got sports again, right? I was even just saying that the other night. We were watching the Eagles, and it was just like I'm watching SportsCenter hits, and I'm watching all of this stuff, talking about all these games and all these things with crowds. And I'm like, man, just imagine, we thought that may never happen again just a year or so, two ago. And now here we are, slowly getting back. I mean, you hope in 20 years from now, we won't even, it'll be a thing we'll tell the children.
Yeah. Shoot me straight, Paul. When you've gone to the link, do you sing "Fly, Eagles, Fly"?
I have when I've been there. I've been there a handful of times, honestly. And it's been great every time, because I've only gotten the chance to go, like I said, maybe 4 times.
Yeah.
One with my brother in a playoff game that was madness. Rob Haydack was another guy I've gotten to go with before. I got to go to a Raiders game when I was out there with Eric Nixick, Bilal. We all went to one of those games. But yeah, and I didn't get to go when the Eagles played the Raiders. That was a missed opportunity on my part. I probably could have went, but I'd rather just watch it on TV when it's your own team. I can go and enjoy a Raiders game when they're playing the Bears. I don't care. But with your own team, it's not that I'm not even all that invested this year, to be honest.
Yeah, but I know you're a Philly guy, and I'll tell you what, I went there in 2003. The link was kind of brand new at the time.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't believe how into it the fans were. And, of course, it was a high-scoring game against my Niners. It went into overtime. I won't tell you who won. I'll spare you that. But it went into overtime, but I don't know how many times I had to hear that song, man.
Oh yeah.
And at first it drove me nuts, and then I wished I was wearing green singing it just because I was in the stadium and it meant so much to everyone. So I cannot hate on him. And Philly fans are honestly right up there.
Yeah, they're up there. We're brutal as well, though. You know,
Oh, yeah.
it's one of these cities where you've got to be able to ride the wave if you're a player. You know, when you're on and you're hot and you're scoring and you're winning games, we absolutely will die for you. But when you are bad, we will wish bad things upon you. You know, it's that kind of culture, but that's how it is. It makes tough people.
All right, let's tie a couple things down here that you mentioned already. By keeping light, I think that's what enabled you to step in on less than a week's notice for that fight that you had just over a year ago, right? That's why you were able to do it, because of how you picked up extreme sports, marathons, and triathlons, or had you already been just becoming a lighter person?
No. I was a very heavy person for a 155 pounder, which is normal for a lot of us. I mean, sadly, in this sport, we know a lot of people cut a ton of weight, and I was one of those people. But yeah, I during the initial quarantines and stuff, we obviously all the gyms were shut down, especially early on. Eventually, people started doing secret private training sessions, and we were doing our own thing. But I mean, the first month, 2 months, there was nothing to do, and I had just fought not that long ago, so I was like, already, it would be the appropriate time for me to get back on the horse and get back in the gym, and it just wasn't there. So I started running. There was a trail right by where I live now, but even closer to where I had an apartment. And it's this cool, like, wildlife preserve trail. Okay. And I was just like, I'm just going to start doing runs. Then it got to a point where I was like, all right, I started challenging myself. I did all the push-up challenges and all that kind of BS too. That was fun. But I was like, I'm just going to run every day. It doesn't matter how fast, how slow. I'm just going to start running every day, no matter how bad it hurts. I did that for like a week or two. Started being able to run longer distances, and then it became an obsession. You know, like, obviously I have an addictive personality when it comes to that kind of stuff anyway. It's why I was a professional fighter for so long. But I became obsessed with these guys, these endurance athletes, because I had time to sit and watch this shit on YouTube. You know, I'm watching these triathletes and marathon runners, and I found one guy in particular who's become a buddy of mine, this guy Lionel Sanders. He's a freak. And I started watching his runs and some of his workouts on YouTube, and I was like, let me go and try to do something even similar to that. And I mean, I was nowhere even near the ballpark of the fitness that these athletes are in. And it started making me think, this is before I thought about retirement. So I started wanting to, well, I want to be that fit. You know, I want to be able to just go until I can almost kill myself with it. And that led into more triathlon, where I started to get a bike and then started to want to swim, and it's still an obsession.
Yeah.
And but like I did, yeah, that's the only reason I was able to take that fight. And I'm even lighter now than when I took that fight on short notice back when I was still fighting at 55. Now, I mean, 175 is maybe 178 is the absolute heaviest. I mean, I don't even see 180 anymore. And I was close to 180 when I took that fight.
Wow. All right. And you're feeling great, obviously, and competing. You recently did a half marathon. So I guess that would be 13.1 miles. You said without the swim and the bike, you were able to set a PR, which is personal record, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Feeling good. How often are you doing this?
I mean, now that it's becoming winter, there's quite a few races and like turkey trots and Christmas themed races, and there's no real triathlons, especially on the East Coast. Obviously the water's too cold. We can't go and swim in open water right now, even with a wetsuit. It's probably like in the 40s or 50s. It's where it gets really dicey at that point. But I did the Philly half marathon, and I was able to do it in 1:30 and change, and that was the goal. Sub 1:30 was really what I wanted, and I think I technically got it. That course, I want Philly marathon people to go check the course, because I saw other people. I ran from my watch to the end of that run. My watch says that run was 13.36, which I know that doesn't seem like much, but when you're trying to get a PR and a number, my Strava says that I ran it in 1:28, like 36. So that's like sub 7-minute miles for 13 plus miles. So, I mean, it was like a 6:45 per mile pace, which if you're a really good runner, is nothing to you. But if you're somebody who's starting out, it's freaking fast.
It is. And I know this because when I go do a walk, now granted, I'm still not recovered from that injury you saw me take. But if I do 4 miles with my headphones or my earpods or whatever, I'm coming in at around an hour and a half or 4 miles just walking, maybe walking the dog pace a little bit. So you're doing 13 running. That's amazing.
Yeah. It was awesome, man. And it was in the city I grew up in. You got to start on, right outside of the art museum on the Parkway, go all the way down to Columbus Boulevard and through some of the old city areas, some cobblestones, down Delaware Ave, up into like South Street, all the way up Walnut Street with fans on both sides, everybody with goofy signs cheering you on. And
really? Oh, wow. It was
bro, it was huge. It was huge. The Philly Marathon's pretty big. And the next day is the full marathon. So you get your own day, though, as the half marathoner to kind of, we had guys setting, I mean, the guy that won the thing ran it in 104, man. Like, that's insane.
It sounds like the Rocky Trail. You mentioned the art museum. Isn't that kind of where Rocky's running?
Yeah, and then we finished. We come back up around Oval Circle, and then we finish right there. And it was pretty badass. And I was picking out dudes that were running around the same pace, and just I think about 3 or 4 guys. They didn't know they were racing me, but I was racing them, and I broke every one of those bastards. So
I love it.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. That you've been able to just do something. I mean, I don't know that at the level that you did MMA, but still, you're out there and you're doing stuff. And I noticed your group is 35 to 39, and it sounds like you want to compete against these guys across marathons, mini marathons, half marathons.
And to give you a perspective, I 35 to 39, right? That's my group. That I'm probably too old to ever even dream of winning one of these things, even as an age group, or maybe top 10 overall in the event. But these guys are serious, you know what I mean? When you're trying to compete against a 28-year-old who's been a triathlete or a swimmer and runner his whole life, it's probably not going to happen. But real quick, I mean, 35th out of my age group, out of like 500 and some guys, and I just started doing this sport just recently. I came in 333rd out of like 8,000 and some people.
Okay, that's great. In my opinion.
That's not freaking bad, bro. That's not bad.
That's awesome. No, and you've been doing this now for a couple of years, right?
Racing as far as actual organized races?
Yeah, I guess when you became
a year,
an actual run. Okay, a year.
My first one was in June. So that's technically my 4th half marathon, but the other ones were in triathlons, right? So I would have to swim, bike, and then run a half marathon. So it's the first time I've done it where I was just like out of the gate.
Yeah. Another thing I noted, because I went back to Fort Eustis with Goes and some fighters recently.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah.
And Eric as well. And it's hard to believe that our trip that we went on was 4 years ago. When you mentioned the push-ups, I remember you were in the push-up contest. Yeah. And we did a push-up contest here. It was loud. It was rowdy. It was great. But at that time, I remember thinking, wow, Paul can keep a secret, because I think we had a moment of time where we were all just, hey, how you doing or whatever. And then like a day or two later, it dropped that you were going to start broadcasting. So you're now you've now completed about 4 years of broadcasting. How much has your life changed? Because I don't want to ask you how you're doing, because everyone knows you're doing great and you really have delivered, you know what I mean? And I think that's why you're still there. Obviously, you got the respect of your peers and media and fans. But how would you grade yourself and talk about these last 4 years and how it changed your life?
It's been fantastic, man. I've met so many amazing people that have become really, really, really close friends of mine too, who are not fighters, who are guys that are kind of the unsung heroes of the UFC. Like, we don't realize that these fighters are amazing. I was one of them myself, but it's such a small piece of the puzzle. You guys know this. Production is massive, especially when it's on the level of the UFC, and it makes you realize why they are number one, why we are number one in that field of mixed martial arts. It's because of the people that work there. It's because of their commitment to this sport and the people around them, and how, I mean, all my producers, all the guys that I work, all the directors, the cameramen, the guys that put up the cage. I know all of these people, men and women, now on such a different level. And I love it, man. I go out to dinner with these guys. I get to I feel like I'm part of the organization in a whole new way now. I get to see Dane on much more occasions. He's sitting right across from me all the time. He always comes up, chats with the commentators at some point. Sean Shelby, Mick Maynard, I'm on the road with these guys all the time, but I love it. And, that's why it drives me nuts when I get a fighter or somebody that complains about us. I take it to heart. And that's why I kind of snapped at Vittori and we had our back and forth. It's because I want these guys. You know what I mean? Like me and DC and Dominic, we were one of you guys.
Yeah.
So if they don't like what we say or if they think we're biased, it really does upset us. I can tell you on a personal note that we all talk about that these are things that we think about. We want to do justice and diligence to these guys and men and women that are fighting in that cage, man. So I've loved it. It's one of the reasons I was able to retire early. I have 5 more fights at least physically in me. It's not there in the fire. It's not in the belly anymore, so it was time. So it's been a great 4 years. And I feel like I'm just getting started with that and getting back into the acting eventually a little more as well, hopefully.
Well, I guess you answered a question that definitely has come up, but I'll get to that in a second. But I did want to ask you, you retired about a year ago. So you had 3 years of being an active lightweight, which is one of the marquee, if not the marquee division in the UFC because of the popularity of Khabib and Conor, yourself, Booker, Tony Ferguson, the list goes on and on. How has it been this last year being able to call fights and not being a member of that division where you maybe, I don't know if this happened or whatever, where people would feel like you're interjecting yourself, whether it's in commentary or post-fight, and now, of course, you're not because you're technically retired.
Yeah, now it's great now because now I can say whatever I feel. There's no agenda for me to get a fight, especially in my division now. If I want to say I think so-and-so won and not so-and-so, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's my opinion. That's what I am paid to do now. And people have to realize that too. I feel like in sports broadcasting, and now I realize some of the guys that maybe I gave crap to or the Eagles fans gave crap, I'm like, I see it from a different light now because that guy's just giving his opinion, which is what he's paid to do. Now, granted, he's paid to be equal and honest about what is happening in front of him. But if what in front of him is what, I'm going to say what I see. And I do feel I have more freedom to be a broadcaster now and to be kind of an on-air personality as opposed to I'm not a fighter. I'm not fighting any of you guys. So if they want to complain about it, I'm going to come at you from a more intellectual standpoint and not from, well, let's go beat each other up. It's not happening. I'm definitely not fighting for free. I don't even want to fight for, tons of money anymore. So I'm definitely not going to do it for free. So it's been kind of a relief. I kind of like it.
Do you think fighters are on top of what we're discussing because this is such an open sport and everyone seems to either know someone or we're just a few tentacles away or levels away from knowing a person? But do you feel that on top of that, fighters are just sensitive, toughest mofos in the world, but sensitive? And that's why even one little remark on Twitter or something is like, you know what I mean? Because at least I've experienced that. But you tell me from your position, you have a much bigger audience.
Yeah, 100%. No doubt about it. They're a sensitive group, and I was too. And that's how, I mean, I can speak for myself. So I know that when I was fighting, if somebody said this, and it would drive me nuts all day. I'd be walking around all day, pissed off. And girlfriend, what's wrong? Christine, what's wrong? My mom, what's up? I got into a Twitter battle with somebody today, or one of the broadcasters said that they didn't think I won the Edson fight or whatever it was. It would make me upset for the rest of the day. And you see it now. It's just, and I think as the sport grows and we get bigger and bigger and bigger, which we are, I think guys will learn to kind of have a thicker skin because you don't see the NFL guys or the NBA guys battling back and forth as much with Twitter trolls, right? Because they would never have a second left in their day if they did that. So as fighters start to get more and more of it, and where it's almost overwhelming with good and bad, you kind of just have to be like, all right, it's not worth any of my time.
What I found is that as everyone became more secure financially and also just career-wise, it started to matter a little bit less. But because we all kind of started in 1993, not everybody in 1993, but wherever it is you joined, people were still throwing elbows, because that could possibly be my sponsor or my opportunity or my shot or whatever. But instead, we're like stepping on each other to get to that, and it that shade that people feel, like it feels personal, you know what I mean? But I think as things started to get more secure, there's more promotions, there's bigger checks that are being cashed, there's more respect to the sport. And going to what you said, Donovan McNabb, I'll use Philly guys, Allen Iverson, man, those guys are cashing some big checks. Like whatever you said, they've already heard it, but they're pretty comfortable in their mansions, you know what I mean? Well, over here, we were still clawing and scratching just to get there.
Yeah, you got to, you're sitting on your mom's couch in the basement or whatever it be, and you're a professional athlete who's getting criticized. You're going to get real pissed off, right? Because they've still got something over you. But as these people, we become more and more professional, and it's more of a career now for especially these top level fighters. That's not the case. They're able to go and do what they want to do and have a life with just fighting. So when these trolls try to come at them, it's not as it doesn't cut as deep.
Two more things real fast, and I want to thank you for your time as always.
Yeah. I mean, I'm drinking a beer. I'm having fun.
All right, cool. DC recently did a video on his YouTube channel, but it's not anything any of us haven't thought of. And I think it applies to your division. And I think now that you're on the outside, you could probably give a different perspective. But money fights versus the title, chasing the gold, which is what you tell your kids or what your parents told you and what your coaches told you and filled you with, being number one, wearing a gold medal, holding up a trophy, whatever, versus now prize fighting and what that's become. What do you think of the health of the lightweight division and where we're at, where you have Charles Oliveira, a proper champion? He came in once Khabib lost. He was part of a opportunity where it was vacant. He didn't get put over by Khabib. It's always a lot better when you can beat the incumbent. But in this case, he did his job. He won. And now he's fighting Dustin Poirier, who probably could have got there sooner, but he chose to fight some more lucrative fights, and it worked out. And he's still going to fight for the title. But it seems like there's fighters on, that are kind of like on both sides of the spectrum. What do you think of that?
Well, I think there's only really a few money fights out there, right? I mean, Conor is obviously the money fight, and that is where the real wrench comes into the situation, because he is the money fight, right? We know that. We know if you get that fight, you're probably getting a different check after that evening. And now Diaz has kind of become that same situation where I don't know if guys are able to negotiate different contracts with him, but he's only got one fight left. So yeah, it has become a bit of a mess, and it has definitely altered the landscape of the top 5 of these divisions, where guys are like, okay, I'm not going to get the title next, so I'm just going to start clamoring over here and try to get this. But I only think there's a few cases, right? I don't think it's getting to the point where it's going to overwhelm the sport in every division, but there's a few divisions. While we're talking mainly the lightweight, that's where it's really become a problem, because a lot of these guys if Poirier had a chance right now between Oliveira, and if Conor was able to come back right away, he's probably going to take that 4th matchup with McGregor, because he's thinking about his family, right? You're talking about legacy and things like that, but that belt doesn't pay the diapers and pay the food on the table.
Yeah, I guess that's I hope the UFC can find a way, because the UFC kind of made it so that if you became the champ, you got the pay-per-view points. That's where the big paydays came.
And that still is where the consistent money is. That's where it gets a little bit twisted with some of these guys. It's like, if you become the champion and then you start talking trash, you can call out whoever you want at that point. And you see who Conor wants. Who does he want? He wants whoever's holding the belt. He still wants that strap. So if you have it and you can entice him, then you've got both worlds. Then you're getting not only the pay-per-view buys, now you're getting a Conor McGregor pay-per-view buy, which is going to be astronomical, right? If you fight him on any other thing, it's not as much. If that belt is on the line, that's what you want. You want to be, Poirier wants to be the champ fighting Conor, or Charles Oliveira fighting. That's where you want to be. You want to be the one with the belt where he's the challenger. I mean, that's best case scenario for the lightweights.
Plus, we got this era with celebrity boxing or boxing in general, where obviously there's some big paydays to be had over there. And you see fighters kind of teasing that they'd want to do that, but they realize, well, I'm not a lifelong boxer. That may not go my way. But I like I say, I think maybe Conor was just maybe a unicorn. And I guess all respect to Nate Diaz, he made it a big fight as well to be involved with him. They did a whole BMF thing, you know, so
yeah.
We'll see. All right, last question, and we'll go back to something where you said you have 5 fights left in this body, and I guess you've teased it in the last few months where there's either an itch or an interest. Is that like just like a daily thing? Like one day you can wake up going, oof, I want to get back in there, and the other 6, your body tells you, no, man, running, or not your body, because you said you're in great shape, but maybe your mind or your soul tells you.
My mind, for sure. It's definitely my mind. And that is the case. It is. That's why I didn't want to bring it up. You know, Brendan caught me on his little YouTube thing, and obviously Brian Butler, who's not only my manager but my friend, is always looking to tease a comeback, and he knows that I'm still capable of it. It's just, and I even went to the Cleveland Clinic recently, which is a brain research facility, and they've got a whole fighters. The UFC's heavily involved in that, making sure everybody's taken care of, and I've been a part of it. And I went back after 6 years and 15 fights. And nothing. Zero problems. I mean, my eye sockets are all messed up, and my ears and my sinuses are all mangled. But the actual noggin is completely fine. But
so the bar that you said 6 years ago, you were meeting it. Memory,
better.
Okay, this is important. Can you talk about how that test is? Is it 15 minutes, 30 minutes? Is it a whole day?
Hours.
I think every fighter should do this a couple times or once a year. Or at the very least once every 2 years. I think this is super important. Can you just talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. I'd love to talk about that, because I think there's not enough UFC fighters and boxers involved in this study, because the more people involved, the more they can understand different variables and how backgrounds can affect things, how genetic makeup and how you're built can affect certain things. And, you know, I'm one of the lucky ones. I can tell you 100%, because I was talking to the doctor, and it's an extensive MRI. It's an over an hour MRI on your brain to make sure everything is obviously looking good, just from a, you know, standpoint of how your brain's supposed to look. Then it's all these neurological tests and speed and timing tests and coordination with both eyes and vision and balance. And then, you know, a survey that you've got to fill out where, you know, it's asking you honest questions like, are you ever getting depressed? Do you ever feel, you know, any suicidal thoughts or anything crazy? Because nobody wants to talk about it, but this is a real situation. And the UFC is really trying to be on the forefront of it. So I want to give them huge credit for that too, because they're the ones setting us up with this stuff. I just did a follow-up because I had complained about a little headache I had 6 years ago. First thing they did, go get checked out, make sure everything's okay.
I wonder why the UFC isn't more public about this. This is phenomenal. This is great news.
I think you don't want to, you know, any time, same with football and any of these contact sports where there's trauma to the brain. It's a scary subject that I think a lot of people want to dance around, right? But it's funny because everybody talks about CT and all this stuff, and it's just such an unknown thing, right? Everybody, you see that's one of the things that trolls love to come at you. You say something silly on Twitter, you automatically have CT, which is ridiculous. We don't know until you're dead, right? I mean, we have ways of kind of checking to see if you're going down that route based on how certain things looked when somebody was dead versus what you were showing in your signs of your MRI, but there's no real way to know. But it's super easy. It's in Vegas or in Cleveland, obviously, and you can go in and they're super nice. Everybody over there is amazing. They pay for everything that you need. But yeah, if you have any issues as a UFC fighter, go get your head looked at. I had mine looked at. I'm good to go. But I was talking to the doctor, and a lot of it, I was like, why me? I've had 15 fights. I've had some of these fight of the nights. I've had my body and brain kicked around like it was crazy. I sparred super, super hard. I didn't do any of these things that you're supposed to do where it's light sparring, yada, yada. And I was like, is it genetics? Do I just have like a chin as my skull? And he's like, yeah, could come down to some of that and just how you're hit, how your body handles it. So you might get one concussion and I might get 30 and my brain might be completely fine, and the guy that got one concussion might have brain damage for the rest of his life.
That's true.
There's no way.
Fighters that have, or boxers really, that have competed, and it on that particular night, whatever trauma they took, it cost them their life. And then there's others that have obviously boxed even more than that, and maybe even suffered more knockouts. Kickboxing too, and they're still going. But that was really important for you to share that. I'm glad you did. I realized I kind of almost maybe cut off, I guess, your full answer to just not coming out of retirement, or what happens there. Like you said, most of the time you may think about it, but
there's like two scenarios, right? Obviously, the money fight. For some reason, if Connor just hates my guts again and wants to fight me, okay, sure, yeah, I'll throw on the old MMA gloves to get back in there to change my life and teach him a lesson. But other than that, no. I mean, and the other one, Sean Brady actually texted me the other day, or maybe even this morning. He just got back, and he's like, would you come back out of retirement for a fight at the Wells Fargo with all of us? Now we've got 8 Philly guys, or at least close to it. I mean, Petrosky, the Dawkins brothers, Jeremiah Wells, Sabatini, Brady. I'm going to miss somebody, I'm sure. Bill Algeo is still from the Pennsylvania area, right outside of Philly. That would be tough to turn down, but I don't know when they're coming back to the Wells Fargo, and who would I fight? I don't know, but there's
so if it is, it's kind of in the form of a drop-in for something special, not because here I am for 4 more fights on my quest to try and win a title.
No, hell no. I'm not 37. I'll be 38 in April.
And then you have to get in USADA testing again, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think since I'm out so recently, there's a protocol where they could rush me in, and I would have to be in for a certain amount of time. But I don't think I could take a fight on short notice, obviously. But if they were like, hey, we're lining this crazy thing up, would you be interested? And then they started testing me, then I think I could get in time. But yeah, it couldn't be like hey, next month we need you to fight X, Y, or Z. I don't think, at least. I don't know how.
Does it rule out all that stuff that's going on with the Paul brothers? We're looking for another MMA guy,
Hell no.
Boxing
no. See, now, like, at least in MMA, there's the Diaz brother, especially Nate nowadays, and Connor, and these big money fights that I'm like, all right, these are guys that I've watched and that I respect as MMA fighters. I'm not going and fighting a YouTuber, no matter how much he's going to pay me, because you're just promoting the wrong thing, right? Am I interested in it? Do I see all that crap? Yeah, of course. Like, I cheer all those guys on. Tyron wants to go make money doing that. Fuck yeah, bro, go do your thing. But it's just not where I'm at. Not as a broadcaster. Somebody's got a job doing that on a more full time. Like Tyron's done it for sure too, but a little less than I am, where I'm doing color, on a regular basis. So I might be in a different position if I didn't have the job I have. But I love the job I have. I'm trying to keep the job I have. So no YouTube fights.
We covered a lot today, man. I want to thank you so much for jumping on with me here. Probably kept you 15 minutes longer than I should have, but it was a pleasant chat. And that beer you still seem to have some beer in there. So I figured, okay,
I got a lot.
A couple more, but thank you so much, Paul. It's been a great catch up, and we wish you the best of luck. Keep knocking it out of the park, whatever you decide to do. For the time being, it's the broadcasting and it's the extreme sports. You look like you're having a ton of fun. And I do remember you telling me so much about your little daughter on that trip. And hopefully you had a lot of daughter-daddy time, you know what I mean? Through all this.
Tons, man. It's been great. She's upstairs. I'm going to go eat with them in a second. So it's all good right now.
All right. Well, take
Thanks
care.
For having me on. Don't be a stranger. I'll come on anytime with you guys.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. All right. Take care, man. My best to you and your family. We'll see you.
All right, brother.